All right. Well, welcome everyone to our monthly check-in for the Salmon Prize. Very excited today to have two distinguished presenters. We've got Curry Cunningham kicking off the conversation with his work in Bristol Bay, followed by Alec MacCall, who will be talking a little bit about data patterns. And we're hoping to have this sort of as a monthly rhythm for the Salmon Prize check-ins. Now that we've got some good competition going with 10 competitors or competing teams, we want to start sharing some of the things we're learning about what happened with sockeye across the three major systems last year. So a couple of just housekeeping notes. We did apply for two proposals with the Southern and Northern funds. Unfortunately, they don't think what we're doing is that important, so they declined to allow us to submit a full proposal. But that's all right. We'll just keep running at it and then seeing if it breaks anywhere. I did manage to get into a great conversation, thanks to Gottfried, with the, I'm going to forget their name now. Gottfried, you recall the name of that Atlantic Trust organization you introduced me to, Graham? Oh, you're on mute.
So it's Graham Dyack, based in Scotland. I'll put his name in the chat. He's got he works on a lot of activities around data mobilization and compiling information on salmon across institutions, that kind of thing. So I'll put his contact info in the chat here.
Yeah, I think it's the Atlantic Salmon Trust is their official name, but when they heard about what we're doing on the West Coast with sockeye, they were super keen on getting something set up for Atlantic salmon over there. So I've got a call with them in early December just to sort of run them through the process, how it was working on our end. And so who knows, maybe we can have some cross collaborations with the folks on the other side of the Atlantic. So yeah, appreciate that introduction there, Gottfried. So without further ado, let me pass it on to Curry, who was going to give us an overview of where things stand with Bristol Bay. Oh, and we should also figure out who came closest on the predictions as well. So take it away, Curry.
Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen. Presumably, everyone can now see my screen. Is that correct?
Looks great.
Perfect. So to start off with, I want to say that you probably want to wait a little bit before we'll talk about the formal run reconstructions will be done here in the next few weeks. So it's a little early to call a winner on that front, but I'll walk through kind of what we saw in Bristol Bay this year, a little bit of a comparison to our official UWFRI forecast that we released last November 2024, and how that compared with the run as it shaped up. So just as a bit of a reminder for folks who maybe didn't look at our official preseason forecast, this is the breakdown of our forecast by river system and age class. Here, just to highlight, our overall Bristol Bay preseason forecast for the 2025 season was about 54.1 million sockeye. I tend to think about things most often at the fishing district specific levels. So that was about 17 million fish to the Naknek-Kwijak district, about 5.8 million fish to the Igigik district, 7.3 million fish to the Ugashik district, 22.4 million fish to the Nushagak district, and Togiak, not to be forgotten, at about 1.2 million fish. In addition to the total run size, we make a projection for escapement. We projected the escapement for the 2025 season to be at about 15.3 million, which would have had an inshore harvest of about 38 million fish for Bristol Bay as a whole. So that was our preseason forecast going into the 2025 season. Of course, things never play out exactly as you predict prior to the season. So this is where what Bristol Bay run size ended up being for 2025. The total Bristol Bay run was about 56.7 million. And I'll say this is a preliminary estimate, and I'll go into the details of why. When we think about the total Bristol Bay run size, that includes some fish that are caught in South Peninsula fisheries, Bristol Bay bound fish that are intercepted in the areas of South Unimak and the Shumagan Islands. But in general, the inshore run was about 56.7 million with about with a commercial harvest of 41.3 million. And so each of these bars is the overall Bristol Bay run size. Everyone's fairly familiar with these data that's on this call, I think. This continues this decade-long period of relatively high production in Bristol Bay, run sizes at or significantly above, in the case of 2022, 50 million fish. In terms of the escapement, what I have plotted here since 1970, total height of the bar is the total Bristol Bay wide escapement. This is broken out by river system, the major river systems within Bristol Bay. In 2025, of that total run up there at about 56, 57 million, we saw about 15 million in escapement, so fish passing the commercial fishery and up past counting towers or the sonar on the Nushagak River up onto the spawning grounds. I should say, feel free to stop me along the way if you have questions. Oh, that was just Godfrey putting the name of the fellow in the chat. I wanted to give a little bit of a background on the 2025 run. There were a few things that were quite interesting, as it turns out. So some of those have to do with the arrival pattern for Bristol Bay Sockeye inshore. So what I have plotted here is for 2024 compared to 2025. This is daily catch and escapement. So the dark gray portion of the bar is the catch on a given day across the season, obviously starting in early June, running through the middle of July. The light gray portion of the bar is the escapement. And so we had a fairly even arrival pattern for sockeye to Bristol Bay this year. That resulted in about 10 days with catch and escapement over 2.5 million fish. Those are fairly big fish days, but a nice consistent pattern. So from a harvester's perspective and a processor's perspective, a nice easy flow of fish compared to some of the other years we've seen recently. The other notable thing when we look at the median date or maybe the midpoint for the 2024 run compared with the 2025 run, the run as a whole had earlier inshore arrival timing. Fish arrived earlier to commercial fishing districts and past towers than we had seen in some of the recent years, and particularly compared to 2024. So for some folks, maybe that was a little bit surprising and caught a couple people off guard, but in general, a nice even flow of fish, which has benefits from a processing perspective in terms of being able to tailor your product forms with the flow of fish arriving to your plant. The other kind of major interesting point for Bristol Bay was the difference in the average size of fish that returned to Bristol Bay in 2025 versus 2024. At least up in my region, there was a lot of media surrounding the small size of fish in 2024. There were these tiny Bristol Bay sockeye that had returned. This is, of course, a longer term pattern, but was particularly pronounced in 2024. And that really was driven by the fact this is the proportion of the Bristol Bay run by year, broken out by ocean age. So 2 ocean in yellow and 3 ocean in blue. Those are the two dominant ocean age classes. And what we saw going from 2023 here into 2024 was this transition from basically 20% 2 ocean fish in 2023 to a vast majority, 83% smaller 2 ocean fish in 2024. In 2025, that shifted back. We had about 62 or greater than 62% 3 ocean fish in 2025. So the average age of Bristol Bay sockeye was older, 3 ocean versus 2 ocean. That, of course, meant the average size and average weight of fish that we saw both in the escapement and particularly in the commercial fishery was substantially larger than what we saw in 2024. Okay. So with those kind of highlights in mind, I wanted to sort of describe the comparisons that I'm making. So I'll say there's a formal run reconstruction approach for Bristol Bay that basically apportions mixed stock harvest in the commercial fishing districts, accounts for interception of sockeye in maybe non-natal fishing districts on their way home, and also accounts for the fact that, as I said before, some Bristol Bay bound sockeye are caught in fisheries further down the Alaska Peninsula near kind of False Pass as they turn the corner. It turns out between 80 and 90% of fish that are caught down in the sort of South Unimac, Shumagon Islands area are Bristol Bay bound sockeye. So the formal run reconstructions that are forthcoming, that'll be out later this month or in early November, account for all these factors, account for gear selectivity and all these sorts of things. And if you're interested in the methods, they're described in a paper had a couple of years ago with Ray, who's on the call here, and quite a few others. But before we have that, I wanted to do a kind of informal run reconstruction for today's purposes. So I just took the ratio of the escapements by river system within each district and used that to apportion the catch in each fishing district, so we could get back to at least an approximation of run size by stock. And so, for the comparison today, this is using this sort of preliminary approach, and there's a few important things it doesn't consider, right? It doesn't consider age-specific differences in selectivity. The age composition data aren't quite finalized or weren't last time I checked in. It doesn't account for these stock-specific differences in availability to harvest, the interception or South Peninsula catches. The actual catch of sockeye in the South Peninsula fisheries this year was not extremely high, so that won't be a big addition. But when we think about the total inshore run size, that 56.7 million, that'll go up a little bit once those South Peninsula harvests are factored in. So with that caveat, here's the comparison, at least with our formal forecast. So the bars here are the reconstructed, or at least preliminary reconstructed run sizes by stock, Alagnak, Igigik, Agushik, so on and so forth. The points were our preseason forecasts by river system or by stock to Bristol Bay. We'll see some of the larger contributors, Kujak, Nushagak, Wood River, our forecast, at least as they were released last November, were fairly close. The big places where our forecasts were off were in the Igigik River system. There were higher returns of fish to the Igigik River system than we had expected preseason, and to some extent in the Alagnak River system as well. Ukashik run size came in a little bit under our preseason forecast, but that's the sort of general comparison of our preseason forecast last year with the actual run size. I would say, I guess my recommendation is to wait for the official run reconstructions before you start kind of comparing the individual teams' predictions to what actually played out, as that seems the most appropriate way to move forward.
But if you did do the comparison, what did you get? I'm sure you've done it, Curry.
For all the teams?
Yeah.
Oh, I actually haven't. Maybe that was part of my charge, but I didn't. I just looked at our preseason forecast. But I'm happy to send this preliminary reconstructed run size around, and someone else could do that, or I could do that later. But sorry if that was what I was supposed to do, Sean.
Nope, that wasn't part of the charge. We'll get to that in time.
One of the other things I wanted to sort of comment on as well, and I think I talked about this at one of our meetings, but one of the other pieces of information that I've been bringing in as part of our forecasting process are catches of juvenile sockeye out in the eastern and northern Bering Sea. So there's collaborative surveys conducted by NOAA and the Alaska Department of Fish and Game that index juvenile sockeye. I won't go into the details, but for a whole host of reasons, the data are somewhat challenging because of spatial design, and there's in the southeastern Bering Sea, the survey takes place every other year. But anyway, we do a bunch of statistical spatiotemporal wizardry to sort of come up with an overall index of juvenile sockeye abundance in the eastern and northern Bering Sea that hopefully accounts for that spatial imbalance in sampling. These are sort of the general predictions from that model in terms of abundance density, abundance per kilometer squared across space. And so you can see, as you would expect, right, more juvenile sockeye. So this survey encounters juvenile sockeye in the year of outmigration. So in the year they enter the ocean, the survey takes place.
When in that year? What month are these taken?
September into October, mostly September.
Oh, okay. So that should be pretty much the real worst mortality will have been over by then.
The over summer, sort of spring to over summer mortality into the beginning of fall, obviously, probably mortality ramping up as we get into the fall and winter. But yeah, it's after that initial period of ocean entry. which is why it's been used in the past for forecasting Chinook salmon returns to the Yukon River. We use it in that capacity, and also now for Bristol Bay Sockeye. And so, if you sort of look at these figures and magic eye poster it, so to speak, right, you can kind of pick up the years that have more yellow, higher abundance density versus lower abundance density. And so in 2014, this is when, you tend to see higher juvenile abundances, and that plays out in the index that results. And that also coincides with when we saw this increase in this recent 10-year period of higher production in Bristol Bay as a whole. So when you sort of look at the relationship between this and accounting for kind of the return timing of fish, so we catch them in the year of ocean entry, they will primarily return 2 or 3 years later, right? So when we convert these out migrating juveniles into expected numbers of adults returning 2 to 3 years later, you get a relationship with total Bristol Bay run size that's not terrible, depending on whether or not you're looking at this combined index of high seas juvenile salmon or the natural log of that high seas index. These bars are basically the observed run size year over year. These lines are predictions based on that juvenile index, which does a decent job, right, of predicting what's happening both 1 and 2 years down the line. And the reason I bring this up is to look at, okay, this is 2024 here. 2025, we know, was about 57 million fish returning to Bristol Bay. The out-migrating abundance of juvenile salmon predicted a 2025 run of about 53, 54 million. And in 2026, predicts somewhere in the 45 to or 43 to maybe 47 million fish range. So based on, at least if you're looking at juvenile abundance coming from 2022 and we have 83 million, it's been a kind of a progressive ramp down in terms of your expectations for Bristol Bay run size.
It's about time.
Right? Could only go so high for so long. Yeah, I guess.
Cool.
Any questions? I'm curious to see who had a better idea of what was going to happen in Igigik last year.
We can certainly pull up the numbers.
Yeah. I'll send you a spreadsheet with my simplified run reconstruction, but I would say, again, wait till the final numbers are in before you do the final comparisons to crown your winner. The official winner will be next year at the AFS conference, because I know and Caitlin, great to see you on the call. Caitlin will be working on those, and I think it's usually about February before the Fraser River stocks are finalized. So no official winners until next year, which is actually a good opportunity for me to plug our AFS conference next year in Wenatchee, Washington, April 6th to 9th. So everybody here on the call, you're all welcome to come out, and we'll have another symposium like we had last year with an open discussion. So I'm thinking the same type of format again. I'll send out some information on that shortly. I guess any idea when those will be finalized, Curry? Will they be finalized for next month's call? Yes, they should be. I mean, it should be done here at the end of the month. Yeah, I would say within the next week or two, I would imagine.
Awesome.
Could you maybe send the numbers around when you do get them, just onto this?
Absolutely.
List?
Yeah. I'll send around the full brood table and the numbers for 2025.
Excellent. All right. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, just one is, it's really a question for Gottfried. How soon will Fraser stuff be available by stock? But timing group, we've got that from the mission data and so on, and preliminary escapement estimates. When will that likely become available? The field work's all done now, isn't it, pretty much?
I think that's a Caitlin question in terms of the official numbers, but I'll jump in and say my understanding is that the numbers are coming in, but there's a lot of follow-up and kind of post-season review and quality control verification, which I think officially wraps up, as Sean said, by January, February. Sorry to get ahead of you there, Caitlin. Go ahead.
That's okay. That's the timing on that is correct, Godfried. But we actually are still doing some of our final surveys on our late run MU right now. So the numbers won't be finalized until the new year.
Oh, okay, right. You still got some fish coming into the Adams and stuff, don't you?
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, let's give Alec the floor now. Alec, you've got a presentation on patterns, so please take it away.
Okay. Let's see if I never can remember where to get the share screen. Okay. Allow. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Share screen. Is that working? Let's see. Okay. And there we go. This is a pretty short little presentation, but just philosophically, it seems to me that fishery science is more and more becoming narrowly focused on estimating a single number. And yeah, that's lamentable to me. It seems that the science part of fishery science is really vanishing. And so I wanted to just bring up a few interesting observations I came across while I was playing with the numbers, and at least bring the curiosity part back into it. People talked a lot about the techniques they use, but not about the individual peculiar things that they found. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and show you a couple of interesting things. I decided to try to use an environmental covariate this year, even though last year the teams that used the covariate actually tended to perform slightly more poorly than the ones that didn't. I don't think 1 year means anything in that regard. So I decided to go ahead and give it a try, but I knew it was going to be real tricky. So as people like Carl warned Sean early on here, predictive models fail almost immediately after publication. And I think the main reason is, not like a big reason is that when we sort through lots and lots of time series, we've used up all of our degrees of freedom, virtually creating a just so story. And yet we publish it and the reviewers read it as if we hadn't done that, and they didn't know that. But the price is that it doesn't work real soon. So I'm going to try to not make that mistake. And so I'm going to just allow myself one single environmental covariate to consider. Now, if I'm going to do that, I might as well choose the biggest influence I can possibly find. So I took the 6 time series in Pasea. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. I'll call it that. And I collapsed them into one single time series via principal components. So I took the dominant pattern in Pasea, and I was able to get about 69% of Pasea into one number. That's a pretty decently big signal. Here's what it looked like. Now the full 6 variants in Pasea only begin around 1979 or so, and so I have to begin my time series a few years later because we have to be able to look back 2 or 3 years from any run. So I'm beginning around 1982 here. And this is the result. And the very first thing that's obvious is it's shifted. It had a mean down here up until around just before 2000, and then it shifted higher. You can see before 2000 we get these low values which have disappeared since then, and so on. So there's a subtle shift that seems to have happened. So let's just remember that something might have happened about that time. Regarding where we are right now, we're looking back 2 and 3 years. So 2 years ago was this number. It's getting towards normal. And 3 years ago, we had the extreme of the, probably a lot of contribution here from the recent El Nino. So as I was doing this, I had what I call an awkward realization. It's probably one of the most fundamental truths that every student is taught, and yet sometimes when you really see it in practice, it's almost like a revelation. Essentially, when we have a covariate that is sort of from a normalish year, it doesn't do anything for us. We've already learned everything we can from the average value of that covariate to sort of place it, and it doesn't do anything more than that. So just right up front, it's unlikely that the signal 2 years ago is going to do much for us this year. So my expectations are low. However, 3 years ago, we still had a very abnormal year, and the 3-year-old signals could be quite influential. So I'll just get on to a few case studies here. The Columbia River was one of the most interesting ones. When I break out the covariates at about 2008 here, the ones since 2008 at a T-2, 2 years, 24 months, the run sizes associated with them are systematically much higher, the red points, much higher than they were before. And this is before we've even identified a single year influence. It says that everything changed. Our expectations should change. And so we've already learned something even before looking at what actually happened recently. However, what happened recently is a fairly normalish year, and it turns out to be this point right here, so which isn't doing anything to the forecast. However, we do have the observation that the all forecasts now should be considerably higher than they were 20 years ago. So this shift partly confirms the possible regime shift around 2000, somewhere around then, and it's relevant. Now, this idea of shifts is pretty well established in the California current. The 1976 shift is pretty well known. There was another one back in 1940 that hit salmon really hard. So it's to be expected we'll have more of them, and this is just right in line with the way things work. It's less clear how far north these shifts go, but we'll see in a moment. One other thing I noticed in the Columbia River system was that the anomalies, the departures from this regression line, actually have a trend themselves with time, and they're growing. Essentially, we were tending to fall progressively more often above the line as time goes on. So there's a growing time trend hidden in what's going on as well. That's sort of nice to know. I don't know why any of these things are happening, but it's nice to see that. Nice to know that they are happening, and gives us a place to look. I wanted to look at Wood River, Bristol Bay. I guess I could have have the excuse that Wood River is the only run I can pronounce. Here, let's just look at the correlations of run size versus PC1 lagged by monthly value up to 40 months previously. So the T minus 2 years is at minus 24 months, right about here. And T minus 3 years is about 36 months, right about here. Now, we would expect if
Oh, looks like we lost Alec.
We lost you. Oh, we lost Alec, period. Oh,
Yeah,
Curry
hopefully
left the
back.
meeting.
Anyone
Nice.
want to pick up where Alec was left off?
No, this is,
Oh, that's frustrating.
yeah. But it sounds like after doing all those warnings, he hauled right off and started running all these damn lagged auto correlations. And that radically increases the odds of a spurious correlation along the way. It isn't just using too many time series, it's using too many lags. You're bound to find a lag. I mean, what I would say about what he just said is that Dick Beamy should be real proud of him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you are. Is he back? Back to
Well,
teasing.
That's unfortunate. Hopefully you can join the call again.
Maybe I could show you something here that's really striking in the Fraser data. Since we got Fraser people here, there's a completely unexplained pattern developing in the Fraser marine survival pattern or recruitment anomaly pattern. Is there any way I can share the screen? How do I?
Yep, there's at the bottom you'll see a little arrow with in the middle of a square. Basically, just click that,
Okay.
and then you can share your screen or your tabs.
Let me see if I can share this one. Okay. Oh, damn it! It's a little bit too large. Let me see if I can move this around. Are you seeing the things that the screen move?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you seeing a really messy bunch of lines?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. These are the Ricker model anomalies for all of the major Fraser River stocks up to brood year 2020. Well, what you see in this as an overall pattern is that sometime around the early 1990s here started a general pattern of decline in a large number of the Fraser River stocks productivities. And these are mortality rate anomalies over the whole life cycle of the fish. So the mortality rates were going up and there was this kind of downward trend, and it triggered a thing called the Cohen Commission and all manner of agonizing about what was causing this progressive decline in productivity. At least some of it was actually just due to increased spawning stock sizes. So these are anomalies that correct for that effect. And so there's everybody worried about things got really, really bad as of brood year 2015. But the most interesting thing is that coming out at around 2017, all of a sudden a large number of the Fraser River stocks show a positive trend in marine survival rate for the last 4 brood years or so, which isn't predicted, as far as I know, by any of the anomaly patterns, any of the known environmental suspects like GPO and PDO and so on. But it's just a fascinating thing because there's nothing that I can find in any environmental time series or covariate time series that predicts improving survival as strongly as has occurred. And we got it big time this year. The runs on the Fraser basically came in something in the order of 2 to 4 times higher than they were forecast to be. They were jumping everywhere, as it were.
So Carl, does that align with, and I see we got Alec back on. Nice to have you back, Alec. Does that align with what Alec was saying earlier, where they saw a regime shift around the year 2000? Because I know Columbia is still considerably
around 2000 is actually the Fraser decline pattern starts, I think, a little bit before that. The average, on average, over the stocks, but and it's not a regime shift in the Fraser. It's a progressive decline over quite a number of. Well, on average, over quite a number of brood years. That's a progressive increase in total mortality rate over the life cycle. And that's fine. I mean, there's a bunch of reasons we have to expect that to have happened. Competition with pink salmon and warm water, and blobs and stuff like that. That hit a couple of those year classes really hard, like 2015, when it went to sea in 2017 when things were way too warm. But what's really interesting is not that stuff. It's this completely unexpected reversal that's occurred and turned up this year as a sockeye run 3 times larger than anybody forecast.
If I could mention, regime shift does not, to me, mean a single year where everything changes. All it means is it's sort of roughly a changing point. Even the 76 regime shift, which looked very sharp, took 3 or 4 years for some oceanographic variables to change. We just happened to see the ones that happened quickly. But the big point is the rules sort of change afterward compared to before. That's the real important aspect of it.
Yeah, okay. Then what I would say is that on the Fraser, the really big before and after is actually later. It's why did things start improving with the fish that went to the ocean in 2017, when all of the predictors from environmental factors and the previous trends said they should be getting worse. But it's just absolutely amazing. I don't know if you feel the same way, Gottfried.
If I could also just make one, sorry, Carl. I don't know how many of you remember Dan Ware. Probably a couple of you do. He was a really nice guy, but to his credit, he actually predicted that something would change right around the year 2000. Nobody else had the guts to make a prediction, and he did, and it happened. I wish he'd lived to see how right he was.
Well, Alec, did you want to pick up your talk from where you left off?
That's it.
Oh, that was it? Oh, so
I
you're
was trying to get out, but I never can get the toggle to pop up on my screen.
Oh, I see. So you were done and trying to exit, and you exited the
I'm sorry about all that. Little additional entertainment there.
What? Tell me what
I'm over here waiting for Ray.
Oh.
All right. Well, I guess we're.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. The boss saying hi to Ray.
Well, I guess are there any other questions folks have? Anything to focus on Alec's talk that they want to dive in a little bit deeper?
I guess one question for you, Alec, when you did look at those kind of cross correlations at the different monthly time lags, was there something that showed up in terms of the most appropriate time lag across stocks that you looked at? It was always 36 months or?
It was around 36 months or 24 months. It varied from stock to stock, and it certainly varied before and after year 2000. And in fact, in some stocks, it went from a big positive spike on one side to a big negative spike on the other side, but located in the same place. So it suggests, at least statistically, it's a good place to look. We know that biologically it is. So the superficial indications that's the place to look. It doesn't tell you much at all about what's going on.
And so that would be 36 or 24 months prior to the
2-3 years.
return.
Yeah.
Also summertime conditions.
Yeah. If anything, the 3-year signal showed up more in Bristol Bay, partly because that's how long fish live.
Anyone else want to ask Alec or Curry a question?
I don't know, Alex. I mean, while you were off the air there, I was saying, this looks to me like exactly the thing you were saying we shouldn't be doing. You're running those multiple lives. You're bound to find something when you do that. You're just bound to it. I don't buy it. I don't buy your arguments. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was really interesting.
I'm a total foreigner to northern salmon, so this is an outsider's glimpse.
Well, I think it was certainly educational for me. I know enough to get myself into trouble on this topic, but I love being able to bring everyone together on these calls. I think this is helpful. We'll get this video posted. And as sort of the next upcoming check-in, I think it'd be worthwhile to see if we can get somebody to talk about the Columbia stocks. Now, I'm just trying to think who would be really good to do that. Is it Mark Sorrell, or who's the person to contact there? Yeah, Mark. Well, I'll see if I can recruit him to a talk. If not, who else would you suggest we reach out to?
Someone from CRITVIC, maybe from the Columbia River Intertribal Fisheries Commission. I don't know who does sockeye there.
Jeff. However, Jeff, I think has changed jobs, so I don't know if he's got it. Jeff Fryer, I don't know if he still does that anymore, but I can certainly ask him, and he loves this topic, so he'd be all over that. But I don't think he's doing it anymore. But I'll ask him for sure. So that if we can get a talk on Columbia, I think that'd be helpful, because that's another one of the sets. And Caitlin, I know we're still a ways off from the Fraser, but it'd be really good to have a talk on the Fraser. When do you think would be a good time to sort of make a presentation to this group outside of the AFS conference? And even if the numbers aren't finalized yet, I think it'd still be helpful.
Is in terms of like forecast performance by stock for 2025?
Yeah, that would certainly be one good focal point. Although I think I'm quite flexible in terms of just discussions. It was such a surprising run size this year. Yeah, yes. Like are there any insights that we can glean from even from the non-forecasters, the old school biologists? I mean, Lori Whitecap had some great comments a couple months back on this call. I think getting any insights would be beneficial.
Yeah, I can probably think about that in the new year. Right now, I'm kind of ramping up for the 2026 forecast, and I'm training a new biologist at the same time. So I'm kind of subscribed until December, but in the new year, I have some flexibility.
Awesome. Okay. Well, tentatively, the January meeting is going to be, I think it's the 20th. It'll be the January 20th. So maybe we could just pencil that in. And if it works for you, then that'd be great. If not, well, we can find another time.
Sounds good. I think January 20th should work well.
Excellent. Excellent. Are there any other topics folks would like to explore? I know we're focused on forecasting, but I really like hearing from Lori Whitecamp and some of the work that she's done more on the biology side, seeing if there might be some blends on that. I mean, certainly when we're trying to predict what's happening at ocean for 2 or 3 year cycles, there are so many touch points of mortality. If you think about what's happening with the salmon, are there other ways that we could start looking at it from maybe specific timeframes within the salmon life cycle in the ocean? And again, I'm saying this.
I don't think anybody's contradicted the basic argument that's been around from statistical analyses of variation in mortality rates of salmon, that the real action is almost certainly, the real variability is mostly due to things going on in the first 3 months in the ocean. That over most of the rest of the life cycle, there isn't enough total mortality to start with to cause as much variation as we see in recruitments. You need a lot of babies to die at variable rates to get as much observed recruitment variations we have. So it's early and it's at least regionally localized. Salmon decorrelate on spatial scales much over a few hundred kilometers in their variation and mortality variation. I don't think anybody's found a contradiction to that. And there's really large scales like Bristol Bay versus the Fraser. There's this kind of broad negative covariation pattern that keeps appearing and disappearing, logged for a little while and then forgotten for a while. I don't think it's real.
Has anyone incorporated that that pressure into their forecasting? Like really dove into those first 3 months as I don't know if it's weighting the model in some way, but incorporated that time series in their forecasts.
Time
Well,
series of
another
covariates
thing
from that period? Or, I mean, we tend to not, at least in our region, have a ton of information in and around that time
Well,
until we see them in like the high sea surveys. Sorry, Carl, go ahead.
Well, another thing is that, like within the Fraser Basin as a whole, there's a decorrelation as you move further apart in spawning areas within the basin. I think that's suggesting that at least part of the variability actually has its origins in fresh water rather than the ocean.
I definitely think that there's something to that, Carl. Especially I think like with climate change, some of our more southern formerly productive lakes like Shuswap, we're starting to see like that starting to break down. And then like Francois, where Nadine Rear and Chilco that are further north and are having an extended growing season now are doing well.
You're doing relatively better. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we keep chasing things around out in the ocean when a lot of the classic work back in the day when Ray and I got started, for example, our focus was almost entirely on variation in freshwater mortality, freshwater and downstream migration mortality.
We're also seeing like landscape level changes due to like massive forest fires in different parts of the Fraser watershed too.
Beetles and
and then like early Stewart, I think it makes a lot of sense that for this year that with the extremely high returns we saw for them, you know, this cohort is entered a lake that had basically seen zero escapement for the previous 2 years. So they probably, they probably left the lake fat, happy, and then had higher early marine survival because of it. And so I think trying to just focus on the marine isn't giving us the whole picture. And I think it's probably like a cumulative issue.
Well, we know those big runs can clobber the plankton communities in the Fraser Lakes, and I'm sure they do in Bristol Bay as well. Clobber them enough to impair seasonal development of the zooplankton community in a subsequent year or two after a big run.
Well, it sounds like it'd be helpful to have maybe a couple of other talks, one on the early marine environment, and then Caitlin, to your point, on the freshwater side, and exploring some of those factors. And again, not being a modeler, I'm not quite sure how to assess this, but it seems like if there's a way to sort of break that out when you're doing your forecast, you can almost weight the different stages based on information. That might have a different outcome or a increase in accuracy. I don't know. Has anyone done anything like that?
The challenge is that we don't have a lot of freshwater environmental covariates that we can incorporate is kind of one of the biggest challenges. Like the freshwater environmental covariate data set is definitely lacking.
For sure. And limited sampling of juvenile densities in the first summer rearing in a few of the lakes with acoustics and so on. Could be improved, but it's pretty limited.
Yeah, it's
and very little smolt migration data.
Yeah, we have very few places where we have juvenile information for Fraser, which is unfortunate.
Well, I've got lots more questions, but I know we're wrapping up the end of our call. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share before we wrap it up today?
Just thanks
gotta go.
a lot to Curry and Alec.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to chat about Bristol Bay.
Yeah, greatly appreciated, Curry and Alec. I love hearing the stories from Bristol Bay. Also, the correct pronunciations. That's helpful too. And yeah, I'll see if we can get a Columbia speaker for next month. And yeah, looks like we got a Fraser speaker in January. And then I'll talk to Lori. See, I know she's on furlough now, but if maybe she might be willing to give a talk about early marine survival. And then Caitlin, if you're game, I wouldn't mind bouncing around some ideas about how to get some more insights on freshwater. And I would love to see, can we find some alternate ways of getting at some of these covariates, like freshwater covariates? Is there any data from satellite systems that we might be able to pull in? Are there new streams of data coming in that we haven't really explored thoroughly that might be able to sort of tackle some of those challenges? I mean, I don't know, but those are the things that just occur to me as I'm hearing the conversations. So I don't know, Caitlin, if you're game for just a conversation sometime when your schedule frees up.
Yeah, I could probably chat sometime before December, but yeah, we can arrange something, Sean.
Brilliant. All right, everyone. Well, really appreciate joining us again. And again, thanks to Alec and Curry for presenting, and we'll pick it up again in a month.
Perfect. Sean, do you mind hanging out for just a minute? I have a question on a separate topic for you.
For sure.
Good to see everybody.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah.